And with getting used to a lockdown, whenever something odd happens, surprisingly, a lot of odd things can happen in a lockdown because, well, no one's ever done it before. The new normal. So with capturing, something's telling me, like, grab that fruit, pull it down, and then here's what we have. No, this isn't exactly fruit, but it is seeds. And it's saying spread. So like a record player, I feel like I'm playing a record and hitting the stones on the sound stone of the music box. We need to know how to build back civilization after the elites collapse the society around them. In the layman's term, if I'm trying to grab a bare tree, it's harder because the fruit is not there. And this one looks a little more promising because the texture of the fruit looks like it's consolidated well, but it really isn't. Compensating, correlating, lost in translation, and all these things are just like comparing the coloration of like a cornucopia and how well you can do it. I think that if you make like a new virtual databases of information, that it can be off like the normal force and the normal surface, and you can use that as a free actuality in any real world scenario. I'm picking the fruit. Fruit can be anything, like any solution, but if there's a big difference, you can make it even clearer if the fruit is not on the tree, if it's on the ground. Now you're picking fruit on the ground, and that's like the lower scale. Even though the fruit can look really available on the ground, if it's packed in with really nice tasting junk food, sweeteners and that kind of thing, that's what these solutions are. And a good way to connect that is by abstract statues or commercials that have an aim where it is cartoonish. And this is what is to be doing in more complex aggregated systems, but it's as easy as that. Consolidation. It looks like it's radioactive when it's white bleaching. I call something white bleaching. Look at the whiteness on the dark. And this is the case just because it can be, and this is the and this is the case just because it can be on the ever overglade of the luster, is that it is well mixed. It can be well mixed if it has like a whole bunch of grains in it, and the grains are all doing specific accumulated work. So what if there was like a whole bunch of grains together, and they had the ability to white bleach something, even if it wasn't in the sheer interest of having the ease of the white bleaching luster effect. Here's an example of an artificial governance. There is money that you put aside when you work. It's with like a retirement plan, and it's not a 401k, it's like a separate thing. And all this money is put aside each paycheck, and then it adds up over the years. If it's in 5 years, then it will roll over and they'll match it. But if it's under 5 years, like if you're just short of 5 years, they won't match it. And then if you take it out, it's going to be 20% tax plus like a 10% tax, possibly, of the entire amount. So just for them cherry picking it every check, they're saying there's no tax in it, but now we're just going to put it in 30% tax if you take it out before 5 years. So the easiest way to explain something that what we were doing before, how you need to have the rank of the easiest sayings in generic layman's term with the most complexion thing. The most complexion thing will be also ranked in a sub-ranking, because what you're looking for is what complexion thing has the widest outreach, where it can be true if it's big or small, that the law that it is unique for will be interpreted over the complexion of different things that are indifferent from it, and how it complements it is going to be how it is a relation or a union. If it complements it, it could divide it or subdue it, meaning subtracting it. Like oil and water, like fire and igniter would be like a multiplication. Water on oil would be a division, because they don't subtract from each other, but they just separate each other. And then what would be a raise to the power, bacteria. When bacteria gets more coupled, it expands in a power that's ranked more and more and more, multiplied by multiplication. The uniqueness is the arbitrary and the artificial. When something gets so big or so small, it'll light bleach in different ways. And that's how I was thrown off by this giant dirt mound having the hay on it. I was waiting for the hay as I was driving by it, or I was waiting for the shine of it was hay. I thought it was like some liquid gold or something to change off the white bleaching, but it didn't. It stayed the same color the whole time, because it was not the reflection of the sun off of like a liquid having a luster. So then that was an illusion. But the uniqueness comes from, like, if you've been kicked by a girl, like the first time that happens, you'll always remember that, because girls are like not supposed to be aggressive. And then there was a little kid and he put his hand on my knee and was trying to get off the bus. It was almost falling over, and that was reminiscent, because your knees you use, and the kids were little, and it was trying to stabilize. And this is to say that I would be trying to add importance where I found fit. It would be that thing that I would be trying to from the get-go. So with the creation origin stories, that's to say that you would favor one more than the other, when they're all the same thing, just explained different. So I'm looking for the most layman's term, generic, run-of-the-mills, linguistic catchphrase, easy to remember. And so then I'm gathering the easiest way to do that with the hardest thing that people know of, quantum linguistics. Just as you can work in politics and become a health minister and never work a day in your life. The best hiding spot is in plain view. Things like these are what I would call the tales as old as time, where it's just a logic where it's simple and so put, like every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. One thing I like to do is try and put as many of these sayings into the more complicated fish to fry, the big fish to fry, in the quantum dynamics idealisms. And why not just make that as a way of space-time fabric? They all have those things, kind of like a flagella, and then you can use those all together in order to never lose something, or be able to identify it, or make it more consolidated, like a transformer would, the transformer the movies would. And in these systems, you're finding that when it's arbitrary and artificial, the more that you gather things, you'll see that this thing, if you gather a whole bunch of things and you don't flip in the prongs and that, and you don't flip in your key and the flip key, and they're all sticking out, those are a way of counting. And it can be good or bad, but it will be bad if it's hard to carry them all together, and it will be good if you're using them to count and identify them as, so they'll poke out and be easier to count. So you can have that as like an outside source, but what if the product is being pumped with air or watered down? Well, now you have like a inner excavate. But there's some gourmet things that taste good, and when they taste like water, it tastes like they're good. Artificial inflation, where it is a safeguard. If the governing body isn't processing it, then it is not going to even be real. Well, if you just should derive all information from light, the fixtures of a cut, the blade is holographic at its tip. The tip is surmounted by having it being a diagonal from a vertical. Holographic that part.